This is Coda Radio, episode 291 for January 8th, 2018. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Coda Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and its related technologies. This episode is brought to you by our two fine sponsors, DigitalOcean and Linux Academy. I'll tell you more about those great sponsors as this here show goes on. Why me? Thanks for asking. My name is Chris, but that doesn't matter. What matters is our host. He's here every dang week, sometimes from all over the globe, but this week from the bayous of Florida. Hello, Mr. Dominic.
How y'all doing today? That was an offensive and inaccurate Southern accent. That was. Never mind.
Well, you gotta work on it. You know, I mean, if you've been doing like 4 or 5 years of Jar Jar, and then I feel like you could use all of 2018 to refine it because it takes a while. You gotta soak it in, which means you gotta go out to more bars, you gotta go out to more restaurants, you gotta go meet the people.
No. One of those I don't need to do. I'm fat now, Chris.
Oh, well, 2017 was a rough year for me. Just in general, a real ball buster. And the first thing that slips is my weight. And for a portion, I'd lost like 25 pounds. I was on this fasting streak, reduced, caloric intake, increased caloric output. These kinds of things were really working for me. And then I went to New York and I lived in a car for 2 weeks and lived on the road. And it just completely destroyed my ability to take care of myself, and I have not recovered since then. So this week is the first week I'm like getting back into like drinking a lot of water, going on nightly walks, trying to. It's not because I'm like some New Year's guy. I don't make big New Year's plans. It's just I'm through the holidays, which are the worst time of year. I hate the holidays. It just destroys my business. It just is the most insane amount of work I ever have to do for a year. It's intense. I'm doing 3-4 shows a day to get it through the holidays, and I'm murdering myself, and it's just my physical care has to slip.
Yeah, so I recently moved to Florida. Well, it's actually been 6 months now, so it's actually been a while.
It still feels new to me, but yeah.
It's still new, but they have a lot of microbrews down here.
Yeah, that's a big thing in my town.
Yeah, I've been drinking my calories, like not like getting loaded, but you know what beer is? I mean, if you look at what beer is, it's like a glass of bread.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's I gotta knock that out because I look like a short white Buddha with boobs. It's not a good thing.
I know. I feel bad for my significant other. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'll get my crap together. Yeah, it's hard for me too because microbreweries, local breweries are huge here in the Pacific Northwest. And that's generally also dog-friendly territory. So now, as a new dog owner, I'm always trying to go to places that I can bring the pup
with. You have a dog now?
Yeah, I got a dog about a month ago. Yeah, he's a great little dog, and he's not here today, but usually he's in the studio with me. Rikai moved out; I had to have some company. Otherwise I'm talking to myself.
Yeah. Don't worry, Chris. I'm always here to tweet you at night and have you not get it. Boom! Had to do it. Chat room.
Now that's not why we started. We didn't actually come on the show today to complain about how fat we're getting. We actually. I'm really looking forward to doing. I don't know. This year, I was sort of meh on the whole. Let's do predictions, and then when you put it together, I'm like, I got some. Like, I have some inspiration for 2018 predictions. I'm going to make some calls, and I'm looking forward to our predictions. But we also have a bunch of emails. Apparently, people started emailing us again. I love that. To be honest, I'd love to get more emails, jupiterbroadcasting.com/contact. And then we have some great hoopla to get into. So what do you say we start out here with L-Feedback?
Fire away.
All right, so this came in, and I'll say we'll use first names. We'll go with Bob. Bob wrote, and it's a longer one, so I'm going to paraphrase some of it. It says, guys, I love the show. I've been pursuing a career in tech. I listen to various podcasts, and I like the mix you guys get between insightful business discussion and not being horribly boring. He says, I realize you're not necessarily trying to teach, but nonetheless, your conversations have been informative. I need all the help I can get. I was incarcerated 17 years without the internet. So imagine that for a moment. You go away into jail, and you come out 17 years later, and there's smartphones and Wi-Fi and internet. Holy crap. I mean, you got people that make their entire living on the internet, something that didn't even exist when you went to jail. That's mind-blowing. It reminds me of Mitnick a little bit. Like, it's just Wow. Anyways, he says, I need all the help I can get now. I did learn to code while in prison. I had some books on Python. Wow. I also had access to an old Dell running Windows XP. Would you guys mind offering me some advice? I enrolled in college immediately upon my release. I'm going to graduate this semester with a degree in software development from my local college, which is an Eastern Florida State college. I've taken courses in Java, C++, C#. I've learned some Swift on my own, but I've never really built an app. So here's his questions. Would a beginner have a better chance of finding employment in web development than in mobile? You want to just take these one at a time? Or do you want me to go through all of them? What do you... Well, okay, so because it feels like that first one right there, I would just say web development. I mean, we could keep it short.
Yeah, I mean, there is more quantity of jobs in web development, right? But web development means a lot of different things. Mm-hmm. So, there's a big difference between like WordPress development, PHP, or, Rails.
Or building an Electron app.
Having said that, you mentioned Python, right? So that's a definite growth area.
What do you think about freelancing as a way to start his career? Is that nuts, or is that a good way to get some experience under your belt? I'm mixed on that. That's his next question.
It depends. A lot of... because you're starting out, a lot of smaller places are probably going to want you to be a contractor or a freelancer for a few months anyway.
True.
So you might end up having to do that no matter what. The question is, do you want to actually like be a freelancer as a permanent business where you're worried about things like invoicing, projections?
You could just look at it as speed dating. You get to try a lot of different businesses where there's different workflows, where they have different requirements from their developers, and you get an idea of what works better for you.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think of it that way.
If you look at it as speed dating, that might, and somewhat, not even necessarily resume building, but more so networking, referral building, then I think it'd be a way to go. He says, since I know Java and some XML, should I begin with Android? Or is that too niche of a beginner skill to find a job? No, I don't think I would call Android niche. The problem with Android development is the only way that's really going to work when you're a beginner is if you can get in with a company that just constantly building an app as part of their business. The idea that you could create an app out of whole cloth and then be successful with it is sort of like the idea that a person, I want to create a podcast, so I'm just going to podcast. You have to have something new, unique. You have to have something that's competitive, and usually it takes about 15 attempts to figure out what makes that. The developers of apps that go huge, that's almost never their first app. They almost have a string of failures behind them. And so if you're trying to get revenue, you're trying to get employment, I wouldn't plan on making the next big Android app. At best, I'd plan on being a dark matter developer at a company that's building an app for their business.
Yeah, I have to agree. But I would also add that just from my perspective of, trying to sell consulting services, I don't see a ton of demand for native Android on its own or for native Android at all. Most of the folks who are asking me for Android are doing things like Cordova or Ionic or, like React Native. I don't do React Native, but that would be Xamarin in my case. And definitely this is pretty true of... basically every startup I talk to, people are still developing the iOS app either in parallel to the Android app using a hybrid framework, or if they're native first, which, since you're starting out, that's kind of probably where you're going to be looking, smaller shops, or like Chris says, to be a dark matter dev. I would wager that I don't think my experience is really that unique in this arena. I would say that there's more iOS work floating out there, and I base that on looking at my competitors both locally and back up north. Most people are doing a lot more iOS work than Android work if they're mobile focused. In full career advice supportive mode here, I almost read a bit of an assumption that money is a foregone conclusion if you just get in the right job or you build the right app, that it's just a foregone conclusion that because you know coding, you'll make money. And I feel like that's a line of bullshit that's sold by career retraining. Really?
Yeah. I feel like coding is sold as this, and they use the word coding too. I feel like coding is sold as this career change salvation. Oh, you've been at 25, and actually this is real world experience from a family member. You've been painting walls for 25 years and your shoulder's all screwed up now so you can't paint any more walls. We're going to send you through career retraining to become a coder. And so this guy who was a lifetime wall painter went through career retraining to become a developer. And this is 9 years ago now, I think. Well, maybe 7 years ago, and he still doesn't have a full-time paying job. And what I have attributed to is that he doesn't have a genuine passion for writing software. He was never staying up late creating something. He's never done all-night benders building something because he's trying to get through an idea while it's still fresh. That's never been a draw for him. He prefers to build like physical things and then paint them and make them look nice. And that's what his passion is. And so but what happens is your body becomes broken, or you've been removed from society for 17 years, and they need something to say that they're all doing something for these people. And so, well, we have a lack of coding jobs. We need more coding jobs out there. So let's make sure we retrain everybody as coders and tell them it's a sure bet for getting easy money. And I'm not saying this is what's happening to our emailer here, but there are some red flags here when I read his email in its totality that make it feel like there's an assumption that if you just get the right job, you build the right app, you'll just make money because it's coding. And I want to just caution him that's not necessarily true. It's like any other trade profession, which I'm sure he knows.
Yeah, I think that's fair, right? I mean, it's, how many of these coding boot camps or coding retraining facilities, can we call them that, have, in 2017 gone Chapter 11?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, that was a big thing that I think you called at the beginning of 2017.
I did, because I'm always calling people to go broke. Listen, if I have a choice between negative and positive, I go negative every time.
Either way, I really respect that he's, pulling himself together after a major setback like that. And he seems like the stuff he has gotten into, he's on the right track. So I think he's going to be okay.
Just Python alone. I mean, if he studied Python, that's a huge area.
Well, experience in Java, C++, and C# are also very employable skill sets. So I think he's doing right. I think he's going to be fine. His last question was if we have any comments on cross-platform development like React Native and how that might affect native mobile developers in the future. I think he's trying to figure out where the puck is essentially skating to in that. So any closing thoughts on cross-platform development like React Native?
Yeah, it's been a running theme for a few years, right, on the show. The majority of stuff that I see is, or at least that comes to me, is definitely cross-platform. Having said that, I've made a conscious choice to either say, bots first, cross-platform mobile second, native iOS third. I don't want to tell you that there is going to be no native work, because it's simply not true. But a lot of people are migrating to things like React Native in particular, and more enterprises are using things like Xamarin a lot. So
okay. Well, Frego writes in with our next one, and it's about picking up on estimates. He says, and where estimates fail, it's because if more accurate estimate is made, somebody else will come in lower and then get the work, but end up taking twice as long as the good estimate and cost twice as much. It seems like there is no incentive to give accurate estimates anymore. I say it's impossible. Actually. Unless you were having a peer-to-peer conversation about the requirements and expectations, where somebody who had a complete technical understanding and a complete business objectives understanding of what the project was, and they could clearly outline all of the technical challenges, had brilliant documentation for all of it, and could speak to you on a level that was like a peer, then maybe you could get really, really close to an accurate estimate. And I still think you couldn't quite do it because you can't account for everything. And the further removed you get from that perfect scenario, the less chance you have of an accurate estimate because the more surprises crop up.
Yeah, this is one of my main goals for 2018 is to figure out some process for estimation that's not, I would say, as wildly inaccurate as the one I've been using for 10 years. This is a problem. I agree with the commenter. I don't have a good solution. And I'm not sure that there is a good solution, to be clear.
Yeah, and I've been wondering if it's something like lean, minimum viable estimates, where in the estimate it's built in that if these assumptions change, the estimate could be affected in XYZ manner. And just sort of like a way of like building in the couch, right? Into the estimate is the only thing I can really think of. Build in a lot of couch.
I have been on a quest of reading a lot of this stuff. I don't know if you're familiar with the whole Fibonacci style of estimation.
I don't think so.
Well, so instead of saying that, Chris, if you're like, write me a bot for Discord that sends anybody who logs in on Internet Explorer a download link to Firefox, which, why not? I would say, okay. Instead of telling you that's 100 hours or whatever the number is, I'm just spitballing here, I would have to give you a number that is a order of one of the Fibonacci numbers, right? So it's like one. It's 1, 2, 3, 5. The number.
Like you have like estimation buckets. That it's either going to be this many hours or it's going to be this whole another set of hours.
So like I kind of tried that, and the problem is my 3 and your 3 are probably not the same thing.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And people still end up trying to peg it to hours, right? Like, 2. Oh, what is it, 2? 2 hours. Well, yeah, it's tough.
2 hours of whose time and what work. And the thing is then somebody else you're competing with submits a totally bullshit estimate. It's like, what metrics are they using? Oh, it's the worst. It's yeah. Kind of along the same lines. Let me grab the name really quick so that way. Esteban writes in again. Esteban again. It's Esteban. He says, I'm in a completely different business, but your conversations regarding estimates and making changes to your business helps all of us that are running small businesses. Oh, awesome. He says, I do understand why you have been doing less videos. I think he's talking to me now. But you must agree that video is what brought your podcasts / shows to the top of other Linux shows. Plus, I see more Linux podcasts moving over to video format. That said, I now have a clear understanding of why we're not seeing the video that we had expected.
Okay.
Okay. I think that's in response to I've been recently talking about how been refocusing JB on what we can do really, really well. And I never felt like our full video production shows were ever all that good, and they were a very compromised audio product. I think he's right, though. It did help with discoverability. So I'm not done with video, but I'm just sort of taking a period of time where I'm just trying to make our core products more genuine, make them better to what they are, use higher production standards that you can't really do like individual multi-track audio recording on video without just an insane amount of extra work. Like it's exponentially more work to do multi-track audio recording when you're doing a video production, syncing it up with remote hosts and screen. It's nuts. And so we decided when we launched some new shows like Linux Action News or User Air, or the new TechSnap, that it was better to focus on what we could do really well, perhaps even better than most podcast networks, and then later on come back to video. If you look at the people that are moving to video, they're not that successible. Their videos get a fraction of the views that our audio shows.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Right. The videos have to be I have no idea, less than 10%. I wager.
The thing is that the YouTube audience is fantastic for discoverability and availability because YouTube is everywhere. It's on all devices. So being on YouTube has some real benefits, just like being on iTunes does. But that's the end of it. The majority of YouTube audience are children. And they don't have jobs.
What?
And they, yeah. This is a huge Casey Neistat and Logan Paul, whatever these guys' names are, and PewDiePie. It's children watching their videos.
I literally have no idea what you're talking about now.
The YouTube people, these huge the big secret about YouTube is that it's children, and so the advertising doesn't work because it's ads that don't play to the kids, and you don't have a lot of people with expendable income because they don't have jobs. They're 14, 13, 10. So YouTube is not a great business model. Plus, it's a platform that's very finicky, and it's something Mr. Dominic and I have talked a lot about. Is when you base a business on a platform that's extremely finicky, it really wreaks havoc. So I just don't think it's a stable investment either. That's my way of saying once we've sort of cleaned house, we're producing the best products we can with our existing workload, then we'll grow back into video. In the meantime, I may do one-off videos, here and there. All right, so don't kill your BB, Chris. My 2 cents. Nice episode, Mr. Dominic, once again, is the last email that comes in from HippoKits, which I don't know what he means, don't kill the BB, other than maybe he means video? I don't know.
Yeah, so remember last episode, which was for us a couple weeks ago, right? we talked about how I basically shelved Alice for a little while, and you ended up not doing your entire overhaul, and you just focused on TechSnap. And I think you called them the babies.
Oh, maybe.
I'm pretty sure that's what he's talking about.
Maybe, right. Yeah. I don't know. Jeez, it's so long ago. How can anybody remember? But I do appreciate the feedback either way. JupiterBroadcasting.com/contact. Send us your thoughts on what we're about to get into. Before we go any further, let's take a moment and thank Linux Academy for sponsoring this here episode of the Coder Radio program. LinuxAcademy.com/coders. If you're listening to this on the day of publication or the day after, go to LinuxAcademy.com/coders and sign up right away for a special New Year's deal that they have. But if you're listening to this a few days later, go to linuxacademy.com/coders and just get our 7-day trial. Try it out for a bit and get an idea. It's still a great platform, regardless of sale or not. It's worth it. And what a great time to start at the beginning of the year. I'm not into resolutions either, but if you're going to start something, why not do it now? So that way at the end of the year, you can say, I've been doing Linux Academy for an entire year. linuxacademy.com/coders, a full-featured training library with everything you need to learn new skills and advance your career. It's everything around Linux, the nitty-gritty details of Linux itself, but also all of the big platforms that make the money, like your OpenStacks and your AWSs and your Azures and all of those really big, heady things that are constantly changing. They've got the best courseware in the business on it. And if you ever get stuck, they got real human beings that can help you whenever you need it. Simultaneous cloud servers they spin up on demand. And Learning Paths, which are a series of content that's planned by their instructors for very specific career tracks. You're ready to just get into a new track, you go for that. Practice exams and quizzes if you're ready to go get a certification, and all kinds of flashcards that are forked by the community, as well as mobile apps and downloadable comprehensive audio and study guides, which you can use offline. And the platform's constantly adding new features. linuxacademy.com/coders. You go there and sign up for a free 7-day trial, and you support the show. If you follow Linux Academy on the Twitters, too, you'll see that they've recently had their big sale. 580-plus hours of hands-on labs and courses for in-depth Linux training alone. Not to mention all of the other courseware outside of that they have. They have a 55% sale going on right now as a New Year's sale for just a few more days. linuxacademy.com/coders. Go there, sign up, support the show, and a big thank you to Linux Academy. So, let's do it. Let's get the elephant in the room out of the way. We've had a few weeks now with the iMac Pro out in the public. You've been evaluating different workstations over the last year for your development workflow. And I think kind of funny, as the year came to an end, correct me if I'm wrong, but you spent the vast majority of the year on Ubuntu and Pop! OS, and then towards the end of it, tried a little bit of time out on Windows 10, and then ended up on the Mac after like an experience that was sort of earth-shattering where you went, oh shit, I can't even do my job without this Mac because of these damn Xcode signing. All right, fine, I'm just going to have the Mac. And at the end of all of it, after like a year on Linux and a short stint on Windows 10, you ended up back on the Mac. And right as you end up back on the Mac platform, Apple drops the iMac Pro.
Yeah, so I assume you already bought one.
Well, I don't know if you heard, but apparently I'm not doing video anymore, so the need for high-end equipment is becoming less and less.
But maybe this will help you do video. Yeah. See, I'm with you, audience. See, I'm on your side. So I have many thoughts about this. Do you want me just to go with it and stream of consciousness, or do you have anything first?
Well, I'll just start with I'm a little disappointed that the T2 didn't have anything to do with iOS development. It does sound like it's a pretty badass like drive controller, RAID management, boot management stuff, but I'm a little disappointed that A10 isn't touchable by Xcode at all. But go ahead, now go.
So there is a lot I like about this machine. Let's forget about money for a second, because that is a thing. I used to actually be an iMac user. My first Mac was the first aluminum MacBook, and then I had a 27-inch iMac. The reason I left using iMacs and went back to MacBook Pros was anytime you have a problem, you have to lug a 27-inch giant computer to Apple. I also tend to... There was a question for me, right? Like, this machine looks good. It looks like it makes a ton of sense for guys like you. Video production.
What is your too much price? Because honestly, to me, $5,000 isn't it.
So I used to only spend $1,600 on computers.
Yeah, if you're building PC especially.
Well, no, I mean like laptops. And I kept killing them. So now this most recent one was, I think, $3,000. I can't say that 5 is too much. Like, my objection isn't solely price. It's one, it would be one of two machines, right? Because you still need a laptop. And I've read some stuff that's weird on the throttling because of thermals.
Yeah, well, that's the weakness of this machine right there. Is that
right? It's the same case.
Yeah, this is the major disappointment. Is it seems that they're even to the extent of just not spinning up fans. So when they get to a thermal situation, throttling occurs before spinning up the fans occurs. That is,
which is not what I want in it. I have to be honest. Like, I used to lust, back when I couldn't afford it. After the iMac, the Pro G, whatever it was, the big cheese grater tower, right, the silver one that they used to always show in movies and stuff. And if this was a tower, I would almost certainly get one. But go ahead. I'm sorry, I bulldozed you there.
Well, no, I just think the thermal throttling is, it tells you who this machine's for. If the sound and the ambient noise of the machine is more important than just the raw performance, and you're willing to make that slight trade-off, then this is the right computer for you. If you're somebody like me who would be willing to have something that's louder while it's under heavy load, this isn't the right machine. And it's kind of unfortunate because they don't offer anything more powerful right now. We have no idea when the Mac Pro will ship or what it's even going to look like. They say modular. We don't know what that means. It's probably not going to be. It's probably not going to be the cheese grater.
It's also right, and it's also pretty clear that it, had prominent Apple folks not thrown a fit, this was going to be the Mac Pro. Right. So I don't know. I mean, I'm a little conflicted on it because it is actually, in terms of internals and in terms of out of the box, what it can do for me, exactly what I want.
Yeah. And even with this thermal throttling, it's probably faster than anything else you have. I mean, you take just the disk I/O alone, and it's probably going to be, even when it's under full throttle, it's probably still way faster than any laptop you have.
Well, but laptop components are gimped to begin with, right? I mean, that's true.
But this is gimped in a similar way. That's what bugs me about it.
Well, right, because you see, that's not clear to me, though. I've read about 5 reviews of this, and I've watched some really interesting YouTube reviews of computers are weird. I just want to say that. But and I'm seeing really conflicting. I saw one where it throttles the CPU according to this guy's benchmark all the way down to 3.6.
Yes, correct.
Which seems hyper aggressive to me.
Yeah, the thing is that that's only part of the whole performance picture, right? When you still have a very fast disk I/O, you still have
the ECC RAM, right?
And you have an operating system that's pretty well optimized for multi-core processing at this point. I mean, that's one thing you got to give macOS is that they invested in Grand Central Dispatch years ago, and now any application that's Mac-ish is essentially multi-core out of the box. So you can, you're less dependent on the peak performance of each core when you can spread it across 10 cores. You know what I mean? So instead of running at 3.9, they're running at 3.6, but you're actually getting 7 or 8 cores worth of performance out of this thing.
Okay, but here's my nightmare scenario, right? Let's. You're absolutely correct. How? It's still an LCD panel glued right on top of where there's a GPU and a Xeon processor.
Yep.
I don't know if you've ever done this, but LCDs don't like heat.
Yep. Yeah, that's also a concern of mine. Mm-hmm.
So am I going to be lugging a 27-inch, 20-something pound, or however heavy it is, iMac Pro to the Apple Store because of a blotch or a shadow on the screen?
No.
Or am I crazy?
No, in my experience, so I had that problem. Over the years, we've ended up with 1, 2, 3 or 4 iMacs just over the years because, oh crap, we have to have a Mac to do that, and I'm not going to buy a Mac Mini. And so you buy an iMac.
Well, you can't even get a reasonable Mac Mini anymore.
And we did definitely have one that ended up with having dark stripes down where essentially hot components in the machine were, because this machine ran 24/7 and it was part of an encode cluster and all of that stuff. And so it did very much, and I just left it. To be honest with you, the machine's job was too important to shut it down for 3 weeks or 2 weeks to get it repaired. and I just never got and I still have that machine. The one thing I'll say, these iMacs have lasted forever. When the ones that have spinning rust discs, eventually the disc dies out, and then it's basically the machine's entirely is worthless unless you want to go through the glass to replace it. But
that's my next issue. If I'm spending $5,000 plus, and in 2 years I just want like a better GPU, I would just like to be able to get a better GPU.
Yeah. I think out of all of the Macs the studio's ever had to buy, I think the Mac Pro Tower, the cheese grater, which we bought after Apple announced the trash can, I looked around and I said, it would cost us about $800 to convert all of our stuff over to Thunderbolt, just to convert what we have to Thunderbolt. So, and we were running off a Hackintosh at the time for all of our live broadcasts.
Hackintoshes, man.
Yeah, I did a lot of Hackintoshes back in the day because of this problem. This very problem we're discussing led me to Hackintoshes. I don't build them anymore just because I run everything on Linux now, and it solved that problem. But back then I was running on Mac OS on a Hackintosh, and when they announced the trash can, I said, well, I got to buy a cheese. So I went and got a refurbished cheese grater that's still a great machine. Like, we don't use it in production anymore, but it's still in the studio, still runs, still builds software, still encodes video. It's still just like a little champ that is performs very well. We've replaced the graphics card in it, and it's just great. It's just fine. I think it's from like 2012. I think it's a 2012 machine.
Jeez.
It's got two Xeons.
Are you considering the iMac Pro at all?
No. If I was doing more video production, it would be a lot more of a consideration. The 5K screen makes working with 4K resolution video perfect because you have room left over for the video editing, Chrome, and full resolution video. And the fast disk makes importing, exporting, and rendering video really appealing. And the fact that they have two separate Thunderbolt controllers on that thing means you could hook up external SSDs.
Yeah.
I mean, So if I was working with high resolution video, if I was doing if I had like a big drone footage operation or 4K cameras, it would be a slam dunk. There's really not a better machine to edit 4K video right now. Especially if you're on the Final Cut. Final Cut on that hardware is more competitive than people realize because Apple has taken full advantage of their home turf, and they're taking advantage of every sneaky secret API. They're writing directly to the video card that they know ships in their product, and so you get performance out of Final Cut that you would think you need a $10,000 PC to get. And so when the Mac Pro comes in at $5,000, but it's legitimately offering you $10,000 PC performance if you're using Adobe Premiere on Windows, $5,000 is a good deal. And that's why the iMac Pro for some people is a steal. And that's why they're the most common build, and the one that Apple has identified that's also the best for Final Cut is the 10-core system. And that's the version that's selling the best right now. And I think it's specifically because people want to get into video workflows. And as the iMac Pro landed, Apple also updated Final Cut to fully take advantage of the hardware and to support VR editing. So now you can do VR, virtual reality editing, with the HTC Vive headset in Final Cut on the iMac Pro.
Yeah, there are some interesting applications to this machine other than video editing, but I think that's going to be the most common one.
Yeah.
So the challenge for me is I am super paranoid, and Chris, have you ever noticed that I'm picky? And like, one, even if I got the 8-core config, it would be overkill for a while, right? So my concerns about upgradability probably don't matter over the life of the device, or what I would consider the life of the device. True, I suppose
so, yeah. If at $5,000, it's pretty much overspec'd.
But that heat problem, and also, I have a crazy theory that they're going to actually give a Mac Pro that is sensible, that's like a black box that you can put components into. And I think they're going to do it in June. So I'm actually probably going to wait. Having said that, all this guarantees is that next week I'll have one. I think I'm going to wait because I would feel like a jackass although it also probably guarantees that the Mac Pro is going to be a lot more expensive than $5,000, which may be.
Yep.
Like that's about the upper bound. I would say like
screen for the Mac Pro is going to be over $1,000, probably $1,200 screen just for the screen.
That stupid LG I have now, they charge like $1,000 for, which is not not okay.
At these prices, you really are locked in. I mean, this is a cyclical problem, but you really got to be...
I'm locked in anyway, though, right? Because of my workflow.
Yeah. Oof.
Yeah.
Oof. Oof. Yeah, but it is. They seem to have delivered on a machine that at least has the performance that people want. Thermal throttling is disappointing. I wish the T2 did more, but good enough. If anybody out there has a current Hackintosh with High Sierra on it, I'd kind of like to know. It seems like that's going to hurt. Seems like that'd be a lot of pain. DigitalOcean released something that they call their Currents. DigitalOcean Currents, a quarterly report on developer trends in the cloud. And there is actually some really interesting things that jumped out in this. Let's Encrypt being like the number one way people are doing SSL now. It's totally pulled ahead, way ahead. People that use DigitalOcean, they consider themselves 46% developers, 16% system administrators, 11% students, 11% DevOps, 8% managers, 4% technical support, 3% other. There is another stat in here that I did not expect to see. But really quickly, Python, 24% of the programmer's choice. PHP, 27%, and JavaScript, only 15%. C# at 5%, Ruby at 4%.
And no one chooses JavaScript. JavaScript chooses you.
All right, now here's the one I'm rushing towards. What is
Linux.
Your desktop operating system of choice? 39% say Mac OS.
Shocker.
29% say Windows. 32% say Linux. More than Windows. Windows at 29%, Linux at 32% of the people surveyed by DigitalOcean. There's more people using Linux as their desktop operating system than Windows that use DigitalOcean. What's happening? What's going on? What year is this? Is this the year of the Linux desktop?
I think this is the year that Apple, until the fourth quarter, fumbled their professional developer and sysadmin workstations.
That's what you attribute Linux to? Wouldn't that... So those weren't... But wouldn't Windows have... Like with the Surface Book and all that, wouldn't they have been the big winner?
Yeah, but I've tried, right? I mean, you mentioned at the top of the show, I recently tried Windows again. And if your workflow is very bashy and Unixy, sure, there's Linux subsystem on Windows, and it is the best Linux distro out there. Send your hate mail to Alan at Jupiter Broadcasting. It ain't nothing like the real thing, baby, right? It's just not the same as either a Mac or a Linux machine for those kind of workflows. I would also argue, too, that there's a little bit of I think it is hard to underestimate or hard to overestimate how much developer dissatisfaction there was with the Mac machines and the touch books or touch whatever. Then MacBook Pros with the weird touch bar.
I think it really underscores how much Linux has become a development platform.
Right, and Dell.
Maybe so, yeah. Your server operating system of choice, Linux 89%, Windows 8%, Mac OS 2%, BSD 1%. More people using Mac OS as servers than BSD.
Okay, but they're probably using it for build systems.
Undoubtedly, yeah. But that's still... I mean... Do you think that's possibly reflective of the industry at all, or do you think this is skewed? Do you think developers skew this a lot?
I think devs skew it. I think DO actually probably has a stronger Linux bias than your average host. I would be.
Now, why would that be?
Can't figure that one out.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
I'm a little disappointed though not to see my favorite operating system on here.
What would that be?
Solaris.
Sure, of course. Yeah, sure, of course. The machine learning and AI stuff was kind of interesting. Like nobody's really working with it. 83% of people say nah. Only 17% of people say yes. But are you interested in machine learning or learning more about artificial intelligence in 2018? 73% of respondents said yes. So even though 83% currently did not work with it in any form, 73% are interested. Which smells like hype. You smell that?
I don't know what you're talking about. It all seems perfectly reasonable to me.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I thought that was...
it's a little bit of hype.
There's a whole lot more in this thing. We don't have to go through all of it, but those were interesting trends, right? I mean, the Linux desktop one, really, more than Windows.
Yeah, I think we're going to go into the Linux desktop one a little more in a few minutes.
You know what? Why don't we, since we've been talking DigitalOcean, let's mention DigitalOcean, DigitalOcean.com. Go over there, create an account, and use our promo code CODERDIGITAL. One word, CODERDIGITAL, and you get a $10 credit. DigitalOcean is a simple way to spin up infrastructure in seconds. They call them droplets, and they have an interface that will blow you away. It's so straightforward to get started. Everything you deploy is backed by SSD drives, and when you're ready, there's a simple and intuitive and well-documented API to take advantage of all of this stuff. And there's lots of apps already written that do that too. So even if you're not going to specifically write to the API, lots of other people do. Different storage options depending on what you need, team support, and lightning fast networking are just some of my favorite features. But in 2018, I think the feature I'm going to try to wrap my head around the most is their monitoring and alerting. Collecting metrics, monitoring performance, and then receive alerts to help me optimize things like the live stream or the audio stream going offline, or figure out where the bottleneck is so the stream can actually be even more real time. And it's no additional cost. It's just baked right into DigitalOcean. Load balancing is a service with straightforward pricing. My favorite system is just 3 cents an hour. 2 gigs of memory, 2 CPUs, 40 gigabytes of SSD, and 3 terabytes of transfer. DigitalOcean.com. Use the promo code CODERDIGITAL. Go make your account and then kick the tires. You'll be really, really impressed. And speaking of gathering metrics, they have a great guide posted on December 26, gathering metrics from your infrastructure and your applications. The golden signals of monitoring latency, traffic errors, system saturation, data throughput, all of it is outlined in this guide. DigitalOcean.com, go create your account, then apply our promo code CODERDIGITAL. Then when you're ready to really kick the tires, check out their community documentation. Such good stuff. DigitalOcean.com, promo code CODERDIGITAL. All right, Mr. Dominic, are you ready to look into the future, cast our future vision out there, and see what's coming into... We'll just tell people right now, if there's only one episode you listen to, it's this one, because we're going to tell you what's about to happen for the rest of the year. And you could just skip this.
And if you're a bookie... bet against me every time.
Hey, yeah, I think, or there could at least be a drinking game in there. I'm not sure. There's probably something. All right, well, you got a batch. You want to start with maybe some JavaScript love?
Yeah. So I think it's pretty clear now that JavaScript is going to consume our souls if it hasn't already.
Already has, yeah.
Yeah, I continue to see major JavaScript development going forward into 2018. And I don't see any end in sight, to be honest with you. I'm not happy because side tangent. I had to run a Windows VM this weekend and I tapped out all the RAM on my MacBook Pro. All of a sudden, I cared about all these freaking Electron apps on my Mac. I was like, all right, guys, give me my memory back. Yeah. You know what, Chrome? You're getting shut down. Yeah. So, I think JavaScript, if it isn't already, is going to become the dominant programming language for most people who listen to this show.
Yeah, I can't disagree. In 2018 will be the year it becomes real. Okay, so I'm going to make my next prediction with a bit of a couch first, and that is obviously Amazon, AWS specifically, Google, and Microsoft are going to run away with the market in 2018. Gartner and others project like 76% of all cloud platform revenue in 2018 will go to just those three, which is nuts because then software as a service is also going to Microsoft, Oracle, and Salesforce, like 70% of all of that. So it's going to be a great year for Amazon. It's going to be a great year for Microsoft and Googs. But all that said, I think AWS will see the most significant lead in the market erode in 2018. They have a huge head start. They're going to maintain their head start. They're going to be the largest, but they're also going to have the most significant losses. And I have a future prediction, but I think there's things that are coming along that AWS is well established, it's well entrenched, but it's also in the perfect position to be replaced by a more competitive newcomer. When you become the big incumbent, you are naturally vulnerable to certain market dynamics, which I think will become present in 2018.
I can't disagree. I mean, I think AWS has gotten kind of overly complicated and enterprisey at this point.
Yeah. And even though Lambda is going to be a success, I think serverless
really good.
Serverless is the market dynamic that's going to challenge AWS the most. And I think something new, something hypey, a new notable project or product is going to come along, and they'll boast about how serverless helped them get to market faster, or kept the costs down, or made scaling and performance on demand way, way better than anything they could have built because they went serverless. And I think they're going to get a couple of hype success stories like that. Amazon with Lambda and whatnot will do well with serverless, but serverless itself is going to be huge in 2018. It's going to be the big hype topic that people talk about. Build applications without all of the infrastructure, and that's going to dominate the discussion. And there's going to be some companies that I think are better positioned to take advantage of that than Amazon. And I think that'll be one of the biggest things that sort of starts to chip away at AWS's momentum. We'll see that.
I mean, I've used both Lambda and Azure Functions.
Yeah, Azure Functions I suspect there's another company we talk about a lot that's going to introduce something similar, but Azure Functions I think is going to give it the biggest challenge.
I'm not sure what company you mean, but if it's Apple, I would.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
All right. Fair enough. Oh, yeah, probably. Never mind. It just occurred to me who you probably mean.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I'm curious though, because one thing I'd add to this serverless topic is it's scary looking back on 2016 how Microsoft went to getting their teeth kicked in to, hey, we now have like tremendous developer mindshare.
Yeah, we're going to be one of the top 3 companies in this business.
Right, and I don't know, they have a history of leveraging stuff like that to get more mindshare.
This is my thinking: is that it's going to really give some of the new market that's coming online in 2018 will just go Azure, and AWS would have gotten that business by default in the past.
Well, I can tell you from experience, Azure, I confused Microsoft, right? Microsoft Azure is doing something they should have done with Windows 8 and WinRT. Not that I'm bitter.
No.
They're just throwing free credits at people. And you don't have to like be a podcaster. You don't have to really do anything. You could just ask.
And they're everywhere. They're at every event. Right. They're interfacing with community. They've got dedicated staff here in Seattle to go to like meetups and stuff. They
actually respond, like on Twitter. If you're having a problem with something, they actually give you a way to contact them immediately.
I think Amazon is walking a tighter line. It's the line that Google was walking years ago that now they've stepped over. Now people are always concerned about Google spying and Android, but there was a golden era for Google where they did no evil and no one questioned them. They were an open source darling. And anytime I brought up a concern about Google, I would get lots of hate, like, how dare you kind of hate. Which that no longer happens. More and more people, after several accidents and getting rid of Do No Evil, people started to see, okay, well, this is an advertising company. They're positioning the data. Like we're much more realistic about how we view Google going into 2018 than, say, 2014 or 2015. I think that same transition is about to occur for Amazon.
Interesting.
All right. So while we're kind of talking the whole Amazon thing, 2018 in my crystal ball is the year of the smart speaker / Lady Tube Assistant, built into TVs, built into sound bars. General Electric is building it into lights. Sonos is building Google Assistant and Echo support into their speakers. CES right now is all about the Echo and the Google Assistant. CES is going on as we record this episode. It is a bigger market than I think we fully appreciate. Well, I actually have been appreciating for a while, but I think people don't fully appreciate. These were the number 1 selling products for Christmas in 2017, and people they don't care about how functional they are as long as they're fairly good at playing music and asking and answering several questions, common questions, setting timers, and turning your smart home stuff on and off. These things will sell. And I didn't think the Google Assistant would be competitive as much as it is, but Google is apparently selling a shit ton of them, and Amazon has just totally put the pedal to the metal with the Echo. There's dots now, and there's big speakers and revamped speakers. And like I bought the Sonos One over the holidays that has Echo functionality built in. I also bought another Dot because they had a sale going. It's just I also got one for my car, which I will talk more about in News Air. It's a special mobile thing that integrates with the phone for internet connectivity. But I'm putting an Echo device in my vehicle. Even I'm thinking 2018 is the year of the Lady Tube, and Apple blew it by not having HomePod ready for the holidays. People just want an easy, simple way to play music and order paper towels.
Yeah, I was shocked this Christmas. I got a Amazon Dot from an older relative of mine who literally does not know how to use email.
This is okay.
It's not a joke.
This is that was going to be my bar. Is it starts showing up at thrift stores? Family members start giving them to each other. It's like you just start getting them. You start collecting them in your home because so many people have them and are trading them or giving them away. Right. And I think that's the level they've gotten to now.
Well, he got it from a casino that was just giving them away to people.
Amazon is offering a 6-pack for like the price of 3 or something.
Yep.
You buy and they're giving 3 away at a time. And I got one because I bought a Bose Bluetooth speaker, which I like these Bose SoundLeak speakers. They're my favorite Bluetooth speakers. And so I got one when my last one died. And Amazon's like, oh, well, we'll just include a Dot for free. Here's a free Dot, second generation Dot when you buy that Bluetooth speaker. It just came with the speaker for free, no additional charge.
And I'm sure the Dot can control the speaker. Right?
Oh yeah, yep. They link up. Yeah. It's permanently connected now. That Bluetooth, that Bose is the speaker for my Dot. So you get a free little Dot, and then you hook it up to a nice sounding speaker. You don't need a HomePod.
So I do worry about. Just real quick. So also, if they integrated with Sonos now, right? They have a deal.
Yeah, I have the Sonos One too. Yeah.
I have the legacy Sonos, the old one.
Mm-hmm.
The Dot can control that too somehow, which is interesting.
Yeah, well, there's a Sonos skill.
Did you hear the thing that Amazon is arbitrarily writing checks to developers of skills on their Lady Tube?
Yeah.
I have been unable to find, and if anybody's listening to the show can send this in for next week, any data on by what metric they decide how much you make money, like how that works. Because there still is not a great way to monetize this software.
Well, we've talked about it. They're working on it. They're coming up with ways to integrate it with your Prime subscription, or people can buy directly outside of it. And they're also now starting to support hardware accessories to work with certain skills, which is an interesting development. I don't know. I think the revenue thing is still like the revenue. It seems obvious for Jupiter Broadcasting. It doesn't need to be a revenue positive thing. I could see a skill for every show. So that way you could say, Echo, play the latest episode of Coda Radio, or ask Coda Radio to play the latest episode, or ask Coda Radio to play 290. And the skill would just it would just play from the RSS feed, which how hard can that be? Reading the RSS feed and then delivering the MP3, that's got to be the simplest skill possible. Or even possibly you could tune into the live stream on Mondays and you could listen live. And I could see a skill for Linux Action News, for Linux, every damn show could have their own skill. And it never needs to make Jupiter Broadcasting a dime because it's just another way for our audience to listen to our shows. There's got to be millions of use cases like that where it's supplemental to your business. It's additional, just as an example, say you had one bit of Alice functionality, like the one bit of functionality, like an Alice skill. And the one thing was you could coordinate to-do lists or something. And they would then be reflected like in a Slack thread and all of that. Like you could just MVP the shit out of that. You wouldn't have to be the full Alice bot. It could just be one tiny subset of functionality that Alice does that might make the most sense for voice interaction, like to-do lists. And that's it. And that's a skill that would add a ton of value to your overall product. Blew your mind.
Yeah, blew my mind. That could be pretty interesting.
That's why I think it's going to be a big year. I think it's going to be a big year for the Lady Tubes, and the debate over the privacy and the spying is going to be bigger than ever. But something else I've noticed amongst all of my geeky friends, so I'm going to put this in as a prediction for 2018, these smart devices that are accessories to these Lady Tubes are going to sell like nuts. Smart plugs, Wi-Fi smart plugs, Li-Fix bulbs, which are hubless Wi-Fi bulbs. This is one of my favorite things is I have outdoor switch boxes for outdoor lighting where we park Lady Jupes. We have outdoor lighting and we have heating that comes in from external sources. And I control all of that with the Lady Tube with Wi-Fi connected outdoor plugs. And it's like a $35 box. A $35 box, and I can tell my Lady Tube to turn off the outside lights. It's brilliant. And it supports timers if you use the app on the phone. These things are going to sell like crazy. And the way I know that is because so many of my friends bought them for their Christmas trees this year. They bought a $35 smart plug for their Christmas tree.
Stocking stuffer too.
Yeah. So it's going to be one of those where if you can make a little device that integrates with these things, you're going to make some money. All right. So I just did, that's my big spat. That's my big range. You want to do some like workflow developer workstation type predictions? Because I think you and I have ones that in a similar area, but we don't necessarily agree.
Exact opposite. So I think with the iMac Pro and the Mac Pro coming out and with Apple clearly responding to the developer unhappiness, that Linux desktop vendors, I'm thinking chiefly of Dell, kind of missed their shot to really capitalize on that. And I think that we're going to see this trend. We've called it the Mac Exodus. I think we're going to see it ebb. But you don't.
No, I don't. I think because I don't think it is a trend that is bursting and then slowing. I think it's more like a slow but gradual building, rolling momentum. Like it's something that's been building for 10 years and it's just picking up more steam. I think that it's going to be the best year for Linux workstations ever. Once Ubuntu 18.04 ships, you've got Dell just released their 8th generation Sputnik products. I don't know if you saw it, but they just released a brand new XPS 13. Holy shit.
Dedicated. Awful looking white.
Well, you can get it in different colors. Yeah, you're right. I'm not so sure about the white, but it's got dedicated 4 PCI lane Thunderbolt 3 ports on that sucker. It's got a big battery in there, a gorgeous screen. Like I think they are nailing the hardware now. And then you bring on something like 18.04, which is going to be Canonical's second crack at a GNOME-based desktop, and it's going to be the LTS one. 1710, spoiler alert, is the beta for 18.04. That's what 1710 has been this entire time. 1710 is the build-up to 18.04. They work out all the kinks in 1710, and 1710's been a solid release, with a few exceptions to Lenovo laptops. And once you get to 18.04, they're going to have a solid GNOME 3 product. And then you combine it with this new XPS 13, which is pushing all of my envy buttons. I got a 5th generation. These 8th generations, they check every single box as far as performance improvements, battery improvements, build quality improvements. They've really got a compelling workstation here. But the other great thing is you can take that same Ubuntu 18.04 and you can put it on a custom PC that you assembled from Newegg. And you can get the performance of a 5K iMac, the new iMac Pro. You can get it for $3,000, $3,500 in a workstation that you built running Ubuntu. And there's going to be a category of people that do that. And there's going to be a category of people that buy these Dells or these Lenovos. And I think this momentum is going to pick up because of the diversity of options in hardware, because of the standardization in what you build and what you run on. And a new LTS is a great opportunity to rebase. And because you've got all these hardware companies that are coming together now with pretty competitive products, it's going to be huge. I think I'm not going to say it's the year of the Linux desktop, but it's going to be the most successful DevOps sort of system administrator, developer, Sputnik type customer workstation. The Sputnik type customer that Dell's going after, your developers, your system administrators, your technical people that want a great workstation OS, it's going to explode in that category. And I don't think it's going to replace the Mac or super replace Windows, but I do think it's going to be surprising how well it does.
So I want you to be right.
I don't think the iMac Pro is enough of a game changer. I mean, if you look at all the limitations that you and I just outlined with it, and the problems with the cost and the thermal throttling, the thing is the damn fucking. It just really bugs me that the damn priority is thinness on that damn thing. It doesn't need to be that thin.
it could be a couple inches thicker.
And what that betrays, right, in my personal opinion, is what that betrays is a total disconnect with the requirements of the professional workplace. It's this design-driven building of like they went for an iMac Pro and they're like, well, we don't even want to consider making it thicker. They don't even want to consider that. Like, I have monitors on my table right now, Dell monitors, that are thicker than the iMac Pro, just for the LCD screen. And I give zero shits. I don't care at all. I don't care at all because it is a tool to do my job. It is not a fashion statement. I'm not putting it up on the front counter of some fruity tooty retail store where it needs to be a design statement. I am getting my job done. I am doing work. If I worked on cars, all this shit would be dirty and oily, right? I don't care. And because they don't understand that, it makes me think that they're going to continue to miss the mark, even with the tower. And if that's the case, people are going to be turning to. So the thing is I've got 3 machines under this table. 3 machines. They're 6-core, 32 gigs of RAM, all SSDs, and all 3 of them cost less than a single iMac Pro.
True, right? All of that's true. So here's where this kind of falls apart for me. There is a lot to be said for the Apple Store existing, right? From the IT manager perspective, you can walk in, take a machine back with issues.
People love that.
People love that. Let's ignore that for a second. Let's say that. See, I think I'm actually a bad case because I am unfortunately pretty locked in because of the whole iOS thing, right? There's no good way around that for me. I've tried to find lots of ways around it, but ultimately you're kind of screwed.
Yeah, and if you keep fighting it, you're just wasting energy at a certain point instead of getting work done.
Right. But let's ignore the iOS lock-in thing. What is it about 1804 that you think is significantly better? Is it just the stability because it's like a better integrated with GNOME Ubuntu desktop, or is there something pound for pound against High Sierra or whatever it's called?
Well, the first thing that jumps out at me is, the first thing that jumps out at me is you're getting 5 years of support, where I don't quite understand what the support window is of macOS, which is crazy because I've got a couple of them and I still don't quite understand. Like, so if I have not upgraded to High Sierra, my current understanding is anything except for High Sierra is vulnerable now to Meltdown and Scepter. That Apple is only patching the absolute latest. So if I'm on High Sierra, but not even the absolute latest, I don't have that fix. That is a support cycle that is hard for me to understand and is incongruent with the way my business works. The Ubuntu one I like because I get Ubuntu LTS. I can put the same damn ISO on my server. I can put the same damn ISO on my laptop and my workstation. It's all the same bits, and it's all 5 years to support, and it all installs the same thing for the same 5 years. Then you combine Snaps and Flatpak, which are giving something that the Mac has now. The nice thing about the Mac is that you can get this, ideally, hopefully, a stable workstation platform, and then you download new, fresh userland applications like Chrome and Slack and Telegram independently. And they come down in DMG files, which are file system images, and you mount them, and then you copy the binary, which isn't actually a binary, it's a bundle of folders and all of this stuff, and you copy it onto your file system, and that's how you install new applications on the Mac. Well, in Ubuntu LTS, 1804, you're going to have the standard repository of applications that you've always had, all your app-gettable applications, but you're also going to have a huge selection of snaps for things like Spotify and potentially other applications like Slack in the future that are a lot of developer go-to applications. JetBeans is working on this too, are going to be available as snaps. And you're going to get that same dynamic where you have a tried and true, stable, 5-year supported core operating system, but the userland applications are contained in these snaps and they're getting updated very frequently. And major vendors that you want to, like Spotify and VLC, are participating in these snaps now. And then you combine that with this is their second release on the GNOME platform. So they've had 6-7 months to integrate all of the changes and tweaks and bug fixes and continue to work upstream in that entire time, hand in hand with the GNOME folks. So the 1804 release will be just more. It'll be 7-8 months post that new relationship. It's going to be a pretty solid, pretty polished GNOME desktop with basically no agenda other than just making something nice for developers to use. There's no big cloud push. There's no big IoT integration. There's no special Dell version. It's just, here's a workstation OS to do your work. And no strings attached. You can install whatever piece of shit you want, or you can go get some $5,000 rig and put it on that. And that's got to be super compelling to people. That's got to be super compelling and appealing to people that just want to get their damn job done and want to be able to build something that lasts 5 years. And there is really something to like having a machine that you set up and you move into and you live there for years. You know, you get all your GPG key stuff set up. You get your SSH keys all set up. You get all your things tweaked out. Like, it's nice.
So this is the seduction, right, of a powerful workstation, whether it be a Mac OS one or a Ubuntu one, right? At this point, it's not going to be a Windows one for me. Is that if I bought something that I could either upgrade or I just like spent, a tremendous amount of money to Uncle Tim, I could theoretically have a workstation for 5 years that like just has all my crap on it.
Yeah,
right?
The problem is that Mac OS releases have been shit now. I mean, High Sierra is a train wreck still.
The problem is, as an iOS developer, I have to be on the latest Mac OS.
Oh, right. Yeah, okay.
Because they won't let you update Xcode.
No, you're right. I'm sorry. I don't mean to drag you. You're right. You are. It's sort of like me. I'm sort of like hooked at the nuts to Final Cut.
Well, that's my thing. I have this like one simple need, right? That. It's just a huge sort.
What about putting a Mac up at a colo or something that you just team viewer into?
I, at one point, had a Mac Mini set up on the LAN as a build server, and it was fine. But you know what the challenge is with that? It is hard to get a Mac Mini anymore that's not like dog slow. So, I'm at the point where it's just faster to compile things on my laptop. The guy I'm working with, Dave, he has a MacBook, the super thin one in gold. That's faster than the Mac Mini we have.
Yeah, so, absolutely. Yep.
So like, because it doesn't have an SSD, right? Like, there's lots of reasons that the Mac Minis are ridiculously slow.
Yeah. Here's my ideal 2018 Linux workstation, because it doesn't have to be crazy. Just today, as we're recording, maybe it was yesterday, Intel formally announced their NUC that has the latest Intel processor in it and has an integrated AMD GPU. So you get essentially discrete AMD GPU graphics, with some exceptions, and an Intel processor all on one die. And they've built in 8 PCI lanes for this thing to talk to each other. They've done a bunch of memory optimization, and they're going to put this in a NUC with PCI storage, Thunderbolt 3 controllers, and it's going to be like $670. And this is going to be the perfect Linux workstation, because you could use 100% open source software to get full 3D acceleration. This thing's even going to support AMD's FreeSync. And then when you need more performance, like our friend Wimpy, you could just hook up an external GPU, an eGPU, which is working great these days under Linux, and you could have full-on dedicated graphics because this thing's got full 4-lane PCI Thunderbolt 3 on it. And this NUC for $670, which doesn't have a release date yet, but it's being covered at CES right now, is going to be the perfect Linux workstation. It's everything the Mac Mini should be. It's smaller than the Mac Mini. It's exponentially faster because it's using the latest Intel stuff. And you put Ubuntu LTS on that, and it's going to be the perfect computer. It will be perfect. And quiet.
That's true.
That's going to be my computer of the year, I think. And
is it really a NUC?
No, it is. Yeah, it's a tiny little Intel NUC.
Right.
Yeah, it's $679 for the one I want, and then you add some storage, and it's just if I could say just buy one computer this year, if you looking at desktops, that's got to be it. Our buddy Wimpy talks about his. He has a current generation NUC, and it's one of the best computers he's ever had. It's just solid. It's a solid Ubuntu machine, and he's using external eGPUs with the latest NVIDIA graphics cards in them, and just having a great time. He's playing games. He's playing like the latest racing games at 100 and something frames a second. And then
That's really cool.
Yeah, then he unplugs it, and he's just got a nice, quiet workstation.
So just to jump back to the predicament here, there is another road for me, and probably for you too. If you want to stick on like spending less money, you could buy machines more frequently, as someone just mentioned to me on Slack, and just like be on a 18 to 2 year upgrade cycle. Right?
I have thought about a business lease. I've thought about getting like a business lease or something like that.
Those aren't that great.
No,
I looked into it.
Really, part of my audio transition too is reducing the cost of my tooling. It's just that we still have video, so we can't completely switch away. But I don't have to have as demanding video hardware.
Well, so yeah, I'm going to try to make this MacBook Pro last as long as I can. I mean, whether that involves things like trying to compile in the server.
See, I think for you, the MacBook Pro is the sweet spot because you don't need the super performance of a 10-core iMac Pro. What you really need is you need a slightly more competitive MacBook Pro, something with a better keyboard, something that is a little bit faster, has a little more options and a little more flexibility, and you'd be set.
You know what I needed to do, honestly? This MacBook Pro is an i7, which I did the right way, but I needed more RAM because it's not infrequent that I have to spin up a Windows VM for something.
8? What do you have in there right now?
16.
Oh, yeah, well, the Max. You have the Max.
Yeah, well, that's my problem.
Yeah.
I need to. I mean, it is not unreasonable. Maybe this is unreasonable, but in my opinion, it's not unreasonable for Apple to make this like 2 or 3 millimeters thicker, right? And let me have 32 gigs of RAM.
I agree.
Because then I can just have my VMs all day long. But
see, I think these fundamental challenges aren't going away in 2018, and the edge is going to go to Linux. We'll see.
We'll see. We should look again in June because I think WWDC is going to. It's going to hurt. I think it's gonna take a big bite out of the Sputnik and the other vendors.
I don't know. See, I suspect the problem is fundamentally PC enthusiasts don't work at Apple anymore.
Wow,
I think the iMac Pro is a reflection of that. Design enthusiasts, the goal was how fast a machine can we put in this beautiful slim build, which is an interesting design idea and challenge, but it is not something that PC enthusiasts we don't. No, we don't need that. I mean, you know what? Even they could have even done water cooling. They've shipped machines. They've shipped Power Mac G5s with water cooling. They could have come.
Time though.
I know, but they could have come up. They could have come up with something so they didn't have to thermal throttle the GPU.
How about just like a tower with a fan? Is that too much? All
right, Mr.
A little too boring.
Give people some links to go get more Dominic throughout the week between the shows.
Follow @Dumanuko, but also follow @Coder Radio Show.
Oh shoot! Oh, we should have mentioned that. We're gonna launch we'll soft launch. We're soft launching @Coder Radio Show. @Coder Radio Show. Go follow that. We need to do something for the Twitter account. That's also a great way to send us your feedback and tag the show. We'll come up with something to do for some of our followers over there @Coder Radio Show. Yeah? We'll think about that.
Good.
We'll think about that. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning this week's episode of the Coder Radio program. Go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com/contact to send in your emails or tweet them @Coder Radio Show. Oh, it's so official. I'm @ChrisLAS. The whole damn network's @Jupiter Signal, and the show's subreddit's at coderradio.reddit.com. Yeah, that's right. coderradio.reddit.com, which is a great way to also get feedback or topics into the show. You can also leave us comments over there on your 2018 predictions. You got a good one? Maybe we'll follow up in next week's episode with yours, coderradio.reddit.com. Okay, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning this week's episode of the Coder Radio program, and we'll see you right back here next week.